All right, so get ready because today we are going deep, deep into academic language and literacy.
Ooh,
I
exciting.
know, right? It's going to be good.
I love this stuff.
I know you do. That's why you're here. We're basically giving everyone a crash course, like a cheat sheet, to decode, understand, and just conquer any academic text they come across.
Exactly.
So we've got this document, right? It's packed with, like, all the insights and strategies you could ever need.
It is. It's really, really interesting.
And by the end of this deep dive, you'll be navigating academic writing like a pro. Seriously.
Like a pro, you'll know all the secrets, all the tricks.
All the tricks of the trade, exactly.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right into it, shall we? Chapter 1 of this document is all about reading and writing academic texts.
And I think one of the most important things it highlights is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Oh, for sure.
You're going to see a whole bunch of different types of academic texts, right? Textbooks, essays, research articles.
Yeah, even like charts and diagrams.
Charts and diagrams, absolutely.
Like, I remember when I first started university, I was just overwhelmed by how many different kinds of things I had to read and understand.
Yes, a lot.
It's a lot.
And that's exactly why this chapter is so valuable.
Totally.
It's like a roadmap for navigating that landscape.
Okay, so it's not just about reading the words, but understanding like the genre, the purpose, the audience,
The why.
all those factors that shape like how we read and approach a text.
Absolutely. And one of the most crucial skills highlighted is the ability to pinpoint the main idea or argument.
Okay, that makes sense, but how do we actually do that? It's easy to get lost in the details.
The document gives us some practical strategies, things like looking for topic sentences, paying attention to headings and subheadings,
Those are good ones.
and how authors use those transition words.
The signposts.
Exactly, to guide us through.
Okay, so it's like being a detective looking for clues to uncover the author's main message.
Precise.
And once you've got that main message, everything else kind of falls into place.
It does.
It's like you have a framework to hang those details on.
Yeah, and what's great about this is that these skills aren't just for, academics.
You're right, you use them all the time.
All the time in everyday life.
Reading news articles or even like trying to figure out a complicated email.
Makes you a much better reader overall.
I like that, becoming a more discerning and informed reader.
Exactly.
So that's reading, right? But writing, that's where it gets real for a lot of students.
Definitely.
That's where the pressure's on.
Absolutely. And that's why the next chapter dives into the world of academic writing,
Oh, good.
specifically a type of essay called the expository essay.
Okay, expository essay.
Yeah, have you heard of it?
Yeah, I think so.
It's where you present an argument based on, facts and evidence.
Right, so you're taking a stance on a topic and then backing it up with, like, solid proof.
Precisely. It's about building that convincing case.
Not just sharing your opinion. You got to have the receipts.
Exactly, the receipts. And this chapter, it breaks down the whole writing process into clear steps.
Okay, good, because that can be overwhelming.
It can be.
Starting with understanding the assignment itself.
Right. You need to decode those instructions first, make sure you're answering the right question.
I remember sometimes I just, like, miss the point entirely because I didn't understand the instructions. And then you get a bad grade and you're like, what happened?
So frustrating.
Yeah, and the document talks about keywords in the prompt. Like the words that tell you exactly what they want you to do.
Describe, explain, compare, contrast.
Like a secret code.
Exactly.
And once you crack the code, then you can brainstorm, research, and start building your argument.
Absolutely. It's like a puzzle.
Okay, so brainstorming, research, that's all good.
Yeah.
But what about structure? Like, how do you take all those ideas and evidence and turn it into a coherent essay?
Okay, good point.
I always struggled with that part.
Well, the document lays out that classic structure for us.
Okay, remind me?
Introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion.
Oh, right, that familiar format. But I think it's always good to have a refresher. Like how does each part actually contribute to the whole argument?
Exactly. So the introduction sets the stage, introduces the topic, and gives us your thesis statement.
The thesis statement, that's the main argument you're going to be developing, right?
Precisely. It's like a roadmap for the reader, showing them where you're going to take them.
I like that.
And each body paragraph focuses on a specific point that supports your thesis,
All right.
providing evidence and analysis to back up your claim.
So it's like building a house, brick by brick, each paragraph adding another layer of support.
I like that, yes.
And then finally, the conclusion brings it all together, summarizes those main points, and leaves the reader with, like, a lasting impression.
Exactly. It's your final word.
Okay, the structure makes sense, but what about the actual writing itself?
The document gives us tips.
Oh, good.
It emphasizes clear and concise language, avoiding jargon or those overly complex sentences.
So just get to the point.
Exactly.
Make it easy to understand.
Yeah, and use transition words and phrases, right, to connect your ideas and guide the reader through.
Those are important. They're like signposts along the way.
Exactly.
Okay, this is making a lot more sense now. But I remember one thing I always struggled with when I was writing academic essays was finding my own voice.
Oh, I hear that.
It felt like I had to sound like some stuffy professor, and it just wasn't natural.
That's a common challenge.
Is it?
It is, and the document actually addresses this.
Really?
Yeah, it emphasizes that academic writing doesn't have to be, like, dry and impersonal.
So you're saying it's okay to let a little bit of your personality shine through?
A little bit. You still want to be credible and knowledgeable.
Of course, of course.
But you want to engage the reader, convey your interest in the topic.
So it's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about finding that balance between being formal and being yourself.
Exactly.
I like that.
And the more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become with finding that balance.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so we've covered decoding academic texts and writing expository essays, which is a great start.
Absolutely.
But what's next on our journey to academic literacy?
Well, the next chapter dives into something that's often overlooked but incredibly important: genre awareness.
Ooh, genre awareness.
Yeah. It's understanding that different types of essays have their own unique structures and conventions.
Okay.
Just like different genres of music or film.
I see. So it's not just about knowing how to write an essay. It's knowing how to write different kinds of essays.
Exactly.
Each one with its own set of rules and expectations.
Absolutely. And understanding those genre conventions can make a huge difference in how effectively you communicate your ideas.
Okay, so it's like knowing the rules of the game before you start playing.
Exactly. Like a discussion essay requires a completely different approach than a cause and effect essay.
Okay, let's break that down a bit. What exactly is a discussion essay?
A discussion essay, it presents a balanced and objective analysis of an issue, exploring different viewpoints and perspectives.
So it's not about arguing for one side or the other.
Nope.
It's more about presenting a nuanced, well-rounded overview of the topic.
Precisely. It's like you're facilitating a conversation between experts who hold differing opinions.
Like a debate.
Like a debate.
Okay, that makes sense. And how is a cause and effect essay different?
A cause and effect essay focuses on analyzing the reasons behind a particular event or a phenomenon and exploring its consequences.
So it's like tracing a chain reaction.
Exactly. One thing leads to another and another.
Okay, so genre awareness is all about understanding those subtle but important differences between different types of essays.
It is.
And then adapting your writing style accordingly.
Precisely.
Okay, this is fascinating.
It is.
It's making me realize that academic writing is so much more than just following a formula. It's about understanding the nuances of language and genre.
It is.
Okay, we've explored expository essays, and we've dipped our toes into genre awareness.
Right.
But what about research? That's a huge part of academic life, especially at the university level.
You're right, and that's where the next chapter comes in, research-based essays.
All right, research-based essays. I remember those being a bit daunting.
Oh, I can imagine. These are essays where you go beyond your own knowledge and you explore a topic in depth using external sources.
Yeah, you got to do the research.
Exactly. You got to find those sources.
Okay, where do you even begin with that?
Well, this document, it breaks it down, thankfully, into manageable steps.
Okay, good.
Starting with understanding the research question.
All right, the research question,
Yeah.
that's like the compass for your whole research journey, isn't it?
Exactly. It's about coming up with that clear and focused question that you can actually answer through research.
So no vague or open-ended questions allowed.
No. You got to be specific.
Right, you need a question that's going to lead you to some answers, not just more questions.
Exactly. And once you have your research question, it's time to, dive into that research process.
Which can be so overwhelming.
It can be.
There's so much information out there,
Yeah.
especially online.
I know. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
I know. How do you even know where to start?
Well, that's where this document is really helpful.
Right.
It provides strategies for finding and evaluating sources, really emphasizing using those credible and reliable sources,
Okay.
like academic journals, books, reputable websites.
So you're not just blindly accepting everything you find on the internet.
Absolutely not.
You got to be critical.
Got to be a discerning consumer of information.
Which is such an important skill these days with so much misinformation flying around.
It is. It is.
It's like you need a filter for all that noise?
Exactly.
Okay, so you've gathered your sources, but how do you actually use them in your essay without, accidentally plagiarizing?
Yes, the dreaded plagiarism.
It's a scary word.
It is. It is.
I remember being terrified of it when I first started writing research papers.
It's a common fear.
Is it?
Yeah, but this document explains it all really clearly.
Good.
It breaks down how to properly integrate that source material into your essay, emphasizing, paraphrasing, summarizing, and quoting correctly.
So it's not just about changing a few words here and there.
Oh.
It's about really understanding the information
Yes.
and then expressing it in your own words while still giving credit to the original source.
Absolutely. And of course, no discussion of research-based essays would be complete without talking about referencing.
Referencing.
Yes.
I remember that being a bit of a mystery at first.
I can imagine.
How do I do this properly?
Well, the document lays it out for us.
Good.
Clear guidelines for using the Harvard referencing style.
Okay, that's the one I'm most familiar with.
It's a common one.
It is.
It shows you how to do in-text citations, how to create that reference list at the end.
It's all about giving credit where credit is due
It is.
and making sure that your readers can easily find the sources you've used.
Exactly. Transparency is key.
Okay, so we've covered a lot about research-based essays, from formulating the question to avoiding plagiarism and referencing correctly.
A lot of ground covered.
But what about other academic genres, like reports?
Right. The document actually has a section on report writing as well.
Really?
It does, highlighting the similarities and differences between reports and essays.
Okay, like what?
Well, both require a clear and logical structure,
Hey,
but reports tend to be more focused, more specific.
more detailed, I
And
admit.
are detailed, absolutely.
With the data and findings.
Exactly, and they often follow a more formal structure.
Okay, so it's like taking those research skills we just learned and applying them to a different format.
Exactly. And the document gives us a nice overview of the different types of reports.
Oh, interesting. Like what kind?
You've got business reports, laboratory reports, field reports.
A whole range.
Yeah. And it even gives us some examples of report topics, like 2 alternative plans for improving the sports center,
Well, that's a good one.
or a study you conducted to compare male and female attitudes to eating.
Oh, interesting.
So real-world scenarios
Yeah, that's great.
where those report writing skills are going to be essential.
Okay, so this chapter is all about equipping us with the tools to handle research-based writing, whether it's essays or reports.
Exactly.
And it sounds like it does a great job of making it all feel less intimidating.
Absolutely.
I'm feeling a lot more confident already about tackling those different writing tasks.
That's great to hear.
But what about the language itself? Like the words and phrases we use in academic contexts?
Excellent point. That's what the next chapter is all about. Academic language across the curriculum.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What are some of the key takeaways from this chapter?
Well, it starts by defining academic language itself.
Which is?
It's that formal, factual, and objective language.
Okay.
It avoids, subjective opinions or emotional appeals.
So it's about being precise and clear and using evidence to support your claims.
Exactly.
Got it.
And then it goes on to explore specific features of academic language, things like sentence types, vocabulary, and even the concept of register. Yeah, remember that example in the document? It contrasted the informal title, like, Brands Are Us.
Oh, yeah.
With the more formal titles of academic journal articles.
I remember that. It was funny.
It was, but it showed how even a title can signal the level of formality in writing.
Okay, so no more slang or emojis in our academic titles.
Well, there might be exceptions, but generally, yes, academic writing is more formal and objective.
Right, of course.
So besides titles, what else should we be paying attention to?
Yeah, tell me more.
Well, it emphasizes complete sentences.
Of course, no fragments or run-ons.
Exactly. Express your ideas clearly and grammatically correctly.
Got it.
And it encourages using a variety of sentence types.
To add complexity and sophistication to your writing.
Precisely. So no more just stringing together those simple sentences.
Okay, no more simple sentences.
Yeah, we're stepping it up.
Got it. What about nominalization? I remember that word being a bit confusing at first.
Yes, nominalization.
It sounds complicated.
It's that process of turning verbs into nouns, very common in academic writing.
Right, so like changing govern to governance.
Exactly, or induce to inducement.
It's a subtle shift, but it does make the writing sound more like formal and academic, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
And you'll see it a lot in academic texts.
Okay, so sentence types, nominalization, checked.
Yep.
What about vocabulary? Are there like specific words or phrases we should be using in academic writing?
It's not about memorizing a list.
Oh, okay.
It's more about paying attention to the language used in the texts you read.
So like learning by example.
Exactly. And using a dictionary and thesaurus.
To expand your vocabulary.
Yes, and make sure you're using words correctly.
Right, so being precise and choosing the right words for the job.
And avoiding that casual or colloquial language.
So no slang or emojis in our essays.
Well, again, there might be exceptions, but yes, generally academic writing is more formal.
Makes sense. So we've got sentence types, nominalization, vocabulary.
Yep.
What else does this chapter highlight about academic language?
It goes into detail about register, which is basically the level of formality in writing.
Oh, right, like that example with the text message versus the email to a supervisor.
Exactly. It showed how register can shift depending on who you're talking to and why.
Right, so in academic writing, we usually need a more formal register.
Precisely.
So no more writing our essays like we're chatting with our friends.
Well, unless you're analyzing informal language use, which could be an interesting topic.
True. There are always exceptions.
Always exceptions.
Okay, so this chapter is all about fine-tuning our language skills to be more effective academic writers.
It is. It's about mastering the art of academic discourse.
Okay, that was a whirlwind tour of this chapter on academic language. We covered sentence types, nominalization, vocabulary, and register.
A lot of information.
It is, but there's one more concept from this chapter I want to explore a bit more. Discourse communities.
Ah, yes. Discourse communities.
Fascinating stuff.
They are. The document defines them as groups of people who share common interests, goals, and ways of communicating.
Like scientists, lawyers, historians.
Exactly. And each community has its own set of conventions, jargon, ways of thinking and writing.
It's like entering a whole new world.
It is.
With its own language and customs.
Exactly. And the document stresses that becoming a member of an academic discourse community is a gradual process.
You have to learn the ropes.
You do. It's about becoming fluent in the language of your field of study.
So it's not just about understanding the words, but also understanding the way they think and write in that community.
Precisely. It's about adopting their way of communicating.
So how do you do that?
The document encourages us to actively engage with our chosen discourse community.
Okay.
Read their texts, attend their conferences, interact with other members.
It's like immersion.
It is. You immerse yourself in that world.
And as you become more familiar with the conventions and expectations, your academic writing naturally becomes more sophisticated.
Exactly. It's like learning to speak a new language fluently. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes.
I love that analogy. It makes so much sense. And just like learning a new language can open up new opportunities.
It can.
Becoming a member of an academic discourse community can enrich your understanding of your field of study.
Absolutely.
And enhance your ability to contribute to it through your writing.
Exactly. It's about joining a conversation and adding your own unique voice.
Wow, that's a powerful thought.
Yes.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have.
We've explored the fundamentals of academic reading, delved into expository essays, touched on genre awareness, and even gotten a taste of research-based writing and report writing.
It's been a whirlwind tour.
It has. But hopefully, our listeners are starting to see that academic literacy is more than just a set of rules. It's a set of skills that can empower them to think critically, communicate effectively, and navigate the complex world of academia with confidence.
It's about giving you the tools you need to succeed.
Exactly. And we're just getting started. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve even deeper into some of these concepts, exploring specific examples from the document, and uncovering even more insights and strategies for mastering academic language and literacy.
We've got a lot more to cover, so stay tuned.
Until then, keep those critical thinking caps on, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Welcome back to our deep dive, everyone.
Yeah, welcome back. Last time, we kind of mapped out some key areas, like the different types of essays, why research is so important, all that good stuff.
Right, like laying the groundwork.
Exactly, the groundwork. And now I'm thinking we roll up our sleeves and get into some specific examples, some nitty-gritty strategies.
Practical stuff.
Yeah, the stuff that can actually make a difference in, like, your actual writing.
Let's do it.
Okay, so remember that first chapter on decoding academic texts?
Oh, yeah.
It was all about becoming a more, I guess, savvy reader, someone who can handle those complex academic texts. without freaking out.
Right. Like you're not intimidated anymore?
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that really stood out to me in that chapter was the example they used with newspapers.
Oh, yeah. I like that one.
It might seem a little unexpected, but it's actually brilliant because it shows how those structural features, like, actually help us understand what the text is trying to do.
Right. It's like they're giving us clues.
Exactly. Clues. So the document uses, like, 2 different newspaper articles.
Yeah, to show how things like headings, subheadings, even images.
Oh, and like the way the text is bolded or italicized.
All of that contributes to the structure.
And guides our reading.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
we have a blueprint before we even start reading.
Yeah, you can anticipate what's coming next.
And the document encourages us to apply that same kind of structural analysis to those academic texts.
Makes sense.
Even suggests doing a little exercise, where you choose an academic text and break down all those features.
It's like taking apart a machine to see how it works.
I love that analogy.
Except instead of gears and cogs, it's paragraphs and headings and citations.
Right. And just like understanding how a machine works helps you appreciate its complexity.
Yeah.
Analyzing the structure of an academic text, it deepens your understanding.
You start to see the connections between the ideas.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm with you so far. But what about those big, scary academic words that we often come across?
Oh, yeah, the vocabulary.
The ones that make you grab a dictionary every other sentence.
Definitely a crucial part of academic literacy.
It is.
And this document, it doesn't shy away from that.
It doesn't.
But it doesn't just throw a bunch of definitions at you.
Oh, good.
It encourages you to become a word detective.
A word detective, I like that.
Yeah. Using context clues to figure out the meanings of unfamiliar words.
So it's like a game. You have to pay attention to the words around the unknown term and use those clues to figure it out.
Exactly. And you might even be able to guess the meaning without even needing a dictionary.
Oh, I love that feeling. Like when you solve a puzzle, you're like, yes, I got it.
It's so satisfying.
It is. And it makes those academic texts way less intimidating when you realize you can unlock some of that meaning on your own.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked structure, vocabulary. What other gems does this document offer for decoding these academic texts?
Well, it talks about the importance of distinguishing between main ideas and supporting information.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It is. It's like sifting for gold, separating the valuable nuggets from all the dirt.
Great analogy.
And it gives us practical strategies for doing this, like looking for those topic sentences again.
Right, topic sentences.
Paying attention to headings, subheadings, transition words.
So it's not just passively reading the words, but actually actively engaging with the text, figuring out how everything's connected.
Absolutely. It's about seeing the forest and the trees.
I like that.
Both are important.
Okay, I'm feeling a little more confident about tackling those academic readings now.
That's good.
But writing, that's always where I get stuck,
Yeah.
Putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, as it were.
I get it. It can be tough.
It can. So let's go back to that chapter on expository essays.
Yeah, that roadmap for clear and persuasive writing.
Right, where you're presenting an argument and backing it up with evidence.
Exactly.
And one thing that really stuck with me from that chapter was the emphasis on understanding your audience and your purpose.
Oh, yeah, that's crucial.
It might seem obvious, but I think it's easy to forget sometimes when you're in the thick of it.
Definitely, you get caught up in your own ideas.
Right, and the document uses that great example of comparing a text message to a friend.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
With an email to, like, a supervisor or a professor.
A totally different tone.
Right. They're both about the same presentation, but the language is totally different.
Because the audience and the purpose are different.
Exactly. And the document makes the point that this awareness is super important in academic writing.
It is.
You're always writing for that academic audience.
Right.
And your purpose is to show that you understand the topic, that you've done the work.
Exactly. You're showcasing your knowledge.
Okay, so no more slang or emojis in our essays then.
Well, unless you're specifically analyzing the use of slang or emojis in academic discourse.
True. There are always exceptions.
Always exceptions.
Okay, so audience and purpose, checked. What other wisdom does this chapter offer about expository essays?
Well, it really digs into that classic essay structure.
Introduction, body paragraphs, conclusion.
Exactly. And it's not just about following a formula. It's about understanding how each part contributes to building a strong argument.
Like constructing a building, right?
Yeah.
You need a solid foundation, sturdy walls, and a roof that ties everything together.
Perfect analogy.
Huh.
So the introduction sets the scene, introduces the topic, presents that thesis statement.
That roadmap for the reader.
Exactly. And each body paragraph focuses on a specific point.
To back up the thesis?
Yes, providing evidence and analysis.
And then the conclusion brings it all home.
It does. Summarizes your main points, leaves that lasting impression.
Okay, structure. Got it. But what about actually coming up with the ideas and arguments in the first place? That's sometimes the hardest part.
I agree, it can be.
Like staring at a blank page. The dreaded writer's block.
Well, the document has some good strategies for brainstorming and planning your essay.
Does it?
It does. It encourages trying different techniques like free writing, outlining, mind mapping.
Oh, I love free writing. Just letting your thoughts flow out onto the page without overthinking it.
Yeah, it's a great way to get those creative juices flowing.
It is. And outlining and mind mapping can help you organize those thoughts once you have them.
Exactly. They help you create that logical structure, make sure your argument flows.
It's like having a visual roadmap for your essay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this chapter really is like a comprehensive guide to writing expository essays, from the big ideas down to the practical tips.
It is. It covers all the bases.
Okay, expository essays, done. Let's move on to that intriguing concept of genre awareness.
Oh, yeah. Genre awareness.
It sounds like it's going to push us to think about different kinds of essays in new ways.
It definitely will. Remember, different genres have their own rules and conventions.
Like you said before, different games with different rules.
Exactly. And this chapter really stresses how understanding those differences can make you a much more versatile writer.
And it uses those contrasting examples we talked about before, right?
Yes. Nelson Mandela's speech.
It's so inspiring.
Versus that dry research article.
Yeah, about alcohol advertising.
Two completely different styles, but both dealing with important topics.
And that's the beauty of genre awareness, right?
Yeah.
It helps you understand how authors make choices about structure and language to achieve a certain effect.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that there's no one right way to write. It depends on the genre, the audience, and the purpose.
Okay, let's explore some of those different genres then. What about discussion essays? What makes them unique?
Discussion essays are all about presenting those different viewpoints on an issue.
Right, so not necessarily arguing for one side.
Nope, more about showing the complexity.
And exploring different perspectives.
Exactly, like you're facilitating a discussion between experts who might disagree.
It's like a debate, but in writing.
Exactly. And the goal is to present those perspectives fairly, let the reader come to their own conclusions.
I like that. It encourages critical thinking.
It does. And this is a skill that's valuable beyond just academic writing.
Oh, for sure.
Think about all the information we're bum-cutted with every day.
It's overwhelming.
It is. But understanding how discussion essays work, it can help you make sense of it all.
You can critically evaluate different viewpoints, form your own informed opinions.
Absolutely.
Okay, so discussion essays are about multiple perspectives.
Right.
What about cause and effect essays? What makes them stand out?
Cause and effect essays, as the name suggests, analyze the reasons behind something.
And explore the consequences.
Exactly. It's like tracing a chain reaction.
Like dominoes falling, one after another.
Perfect analogy.
And the document gives some really interesting examples of cause and effect topics.
Like the impact of texting while driving.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Or the reasons behind steroid use in athletes.
Those are complex issues with lots of different factors at play.
Absolutely. And the document gives us tips for approaching these essays.
Like what?
Emphasizing the importance of identifying those causes, the effects, and the relationship between them.
Right, because it's not always clear-cut.
It's not. It's complex.
It can be.
It can be. And it suggests using graphic organizers.
Oh, like those flowcharts.
Exactly. To visualize those relationships.
That's helpful, especially for those visual learners.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this chapter on genre awareness is really opening my eyes to the possibilities of academic writing.
It's about being adaptable and choosing the right tools for the job.
Right, not just sticking to one formula.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm feeling a lot more confident about those different essay genres now, but what about research-based essays? Those feel like a whole other level.
They can be. They require a lot more than just our own thoughts and opinions.
You've got to find the evidence, support your claims.
Exactly. And the next chapter in this document is all about tackling research-based essays.
Okay, let's dive in. What are the key takeaways?
Well, first and foremost, it emphasizes choosing a topic that genuinely interests you.
Well, that's important, right?
Yeah.
If you're not interested, it's going to be a slog.
It will be. Research takes time and effort.
It does.
So you need that passion to keep you going.
Right, that intrinsic motivation.
Exactly.
Okay, so once you've found your topic, what's next?
Formulating a clear research question.
Right, the compass that guides your research.
Exactly. It needs to be focused, specific, and answerable.
So no vague, open-ended question.
No, we need direction.
Right, a question that's going to lead you to specific findings.
Absolutely.
Okay, research question, done. Now it's time for the actual research, which can feel overwhelming.
I know, right? Where do you even begin?
There's so much information out there.
So much. And this is where the document is really helpful.
In what way?
It gives us those practical strategies for finding and evaluating sources, and it stresses using credible and reliable sources.
Okay.
Like academic journals, books, reputable websites.
So you're not just taking everything you find on the internet at face value.
Absolutely not. You have to be critical.
Be skeptical. Evaluate those sources.
Exactly.
Okay, so you've gathered all this information. Now you have to figure out how to use it in your essay without plagiarizing.
Ah, yes, the plagiarism trap.
It's a scary one.
It is.
But the document does a great job of explaining how to avoid it.
It does.
Breaking down the differences between quoting, paraphrasing, summarizing.
And it emphasizes always citing your sources, both in the text and in your reference list.
Right. It's all about giving credit where credit is due.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what about referencing? Any tips on that?
The document gives us a comprehensive guide to using the Harvard referencing style.
Okay, that's a good one.
A very common one.
It is.
It shows you how to do those in-text citations, how to create the reference list with specific examples.
That's really helpful because the rules can be a bit tricky sometimes.
They can be, but this makes it much clearer.
Okay, so we've got a good handle on research-based essays now, from choosing the topic to referencing correctly.
It's all covered.
But what about those reports we talked about earlier?
Right. Reports are a crucial part of academic writing, too, especially in fields that rely on data. And the document does a good job of highlighting the key differences between reports and essays.
Like what?
Reports are usually more focused, more specific, more data-driven.
They're about presenting findings.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And they often have a more structured format than essays.
Okay, so it's like taking those research and analytical skills and applying them to a different kind of writing.
Exactly. And the document gives us guidelines for structuring different types of reports.
Like those business reports, lab reports, field reports.
Exactly.
And it even gives us some examples of report topics.
Real-world scenarios where these skills would be used.
Right, so it's not just theoretical. It's practical stuff you can actually use.
Absolutely.
All right, I think we've reached the end of this chapter on research-based writing and reports.
It was a dense one.
It was, but it was full of really useful information.
It was. Now, before we wrap up, there's one last chapter in this document I want to touch on.
Okay, what is it?
It's about something called academic language.
Academic language, what's that all about?
Well, it's basically the language we use in academic settings.
Makes sense.
And this chapter breaks down its key features.
Okay, like what?
Things like sentence structure, vocabulary, even punctuation.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it emphasizes the importance of being precise, clear, and concise in our writing.
So avoiding those long, rambling sentences that can lose the reader.
Exactly. And it talks about using transition words effectively.
To guide the reader through your argument.
Exactly. It's like those signposts again, showing the reader where you're going.
Okay, so it's all about making your writing as clear and easy to understand as possible.
Absolutely.
But also using language that's appropriate for an academic audience.
Right. It's a bit more formal than everyday speech.
Okay, I'm getting that.
Good. And another thing this chapter touches on is the concept of voice in academic writing.
Voice, like finding your own voice.
Exactly. And the document stresses that it's okay to let a bit of your personality shine through.
Really? I always thought academic writing had to be super impersonal.
Well, there's a balance.
There is.
You still need to be objective.
Of course.
But you can also be engaging, show your passion for the topic.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between formality and authenticity.
Exactly. And that comes with practice.
It does. The more you write, the more comfortable you become with your own style.
Absolutely.
Okay, this is all really helpful. I'm starting to feel a lot less intimidated by academic language.
That's great to hear, because at the end of the day, it's just another form of communication.
Right, you're just trying to get your ideas across effectively.
Exactly. And this chapter gives you the tools to do that in an academic setting.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive.
We have. We've explored specific examples of decoding academic texts, delved deeper into expository essays, uncovered the nuances of genre awareness, and even gotten a glimpse into the world of academic language.
My brain is full, but in a good way.
In a good way.
It's like all those pieces are starting to fit together.
They are. And in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to put it all together.
Oh, exciting.
It is. We'll explore even more strategies for mastering these skills and show you how to apply them to your own writing.
So stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive.
We'll see you there.
Welcome back to our final deep dive into this, treasure trove of academic knowledge. Right.
It is a treasure trove.
We've covered so much ground already, from decoding those sometimes confusing academic texts to, mastering different essay styles.
I had all those essential skills.
Exactly. But there's one area that I think still kind of makes students nervous, maybe even a little scared.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're saying.
Research-based essays.
Yeah, they can be intimidating.
They can be, but that's why this fourth chapter in the document we've been talking about is so helpful.
It really breaks it down.
It does, into those manageable steps, makes it way less scary, maybe even kind of exciting.
Citing research essays, I like it.
Okay, so where do we even begin with those manageable steps? What's the first thing?
Well, the document really emphasizes understanding the essay topic or the title right off the bat.
Sounds simple enough, but
it's so important.
It is, and I think sometimes we just kind of skim over it.
We do. We assume we know what it's asking.
And then we miss the mark.
Exactly, and then you're like, wait, why did I get a bad grade?
Exactly. It's like those instructions are sometimes written in a secret code,
They are sometimes.
So this document, it's like it wants you to become a code breaker.
Oh, I like that.
Focus on those keywords in the assignment, the ones that tell you exactly what they're looking for.
Describe, explain, argue, compare, things like that.
Even suggest solutions, right?
Right. Each one means something different.
Totally. Signals a different approach, different focus.
And the document actually gives us a handy table.
Oh, does it?
It does, matching those keywords with their definitions, so there's no confusion.
I love that. It's like a cheat sheet for understanding assignments.
Exactly.
Okay, so once you've cracked the code of the assignment, what's next?
Thinking about your audience.
Oh, right. Who are you writing for?
Exactly. It's easy to forget that academic writing is about communicating.
It's not just for ourselves.
No, it's for a specific audience.
Usually our professors, right?
Professors, TAs, yeah.
Who have certain expectations.
They do.
About how we write, what we include.
And the document reminds us that academic writing needs to be clear, concise, formal.
Right. You can't just write like you're chatting with your friends.
Unless that's the assignment, of course.
Unless that's the assignment. True.
Always exceptions.
Okay, so audience check. What about the purpose of the essay?
Purpose. Every research essay has a purpose, right?
It does, but sometimes it's hard to figure out what that is.
It can be.
So what are some common purposes?
Well, it could be describing a concept, arguing a point, analyzing a situation, or even evaluating different perspectives.
So it's like setting your compass before you start a journey.
I love that analogy.
You got to know where you're headed.
You do.
Before you can figure out how to get there.
Exactly. And once you've got your purpose, the fun begins.
The research.
Research.
And this document, it really goes all in on research.
It does. It gives us all sorts of strategies for finding and evaluating sources.
Okay. Tell me more.
Emphasizing the importance of using those credible, reliable sources.
So we're not just Googling random stuff.
No, we need quality information.
Like from experts.
Experts, yeah.
Peer-reviewed journals, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It's like being a detective building a case.
Oh, I like that analogy.
You wouldn't use flimsy evidence in a court of law, would you?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
So how do we know if his source is credible?
The document gives us some great tips for evaluating sources. Looking at the author's expertise, the publication date, potential biases.
Right, so you can assess whether the information is reliable and relevant.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've gathered all this information from these credible sources, but now what? How do we actually use it in our essay without, accidentally plagiarizing?
Yes, the dreaded P word. But don't worry, the document helps us navigate this tricky terrain.
It does.
It does. It explains how to properly synthesize information from multiple sources.
Okay.
It's not just about summarizing each source individually, it's about seeing the connections between them.
Right, and using them to support your own argument.
Exactly. It's like putting together a puzzle, finding the pieces that fit to create the bigger picture.
And then, of course, we have to make sure we're not plagiarizing.
Right, giving credit where credit is due.
The document does a great job of explaining the different ways to use source material.
Quoting, paraphrasing, summarizing.
And always citing your sources.
Always, both in the text and in the reference list at the end.
Yeah. It's all about academic integrity, right?
It is, building that trust and credibility within the academic community.
Okay, what about referencing? Any tips on that?
The document provides a comprehensive guide to using the Harvard referencing style.
Okay. The trusty Harvard style.
It's a common one.
It is. It is.
And it shows you exactly how to create those in-text citations and a complete reference list with examples for different types of sources.
It's like having a style guide right there in the document.
Makes it much easier to reference correctly.
Okay, so we've really tackled a lot when it comes to research-based essays.
We have. From analyzing the topic and understanding your audience and purpose to gathering information, synthesizing those sources, avoiding plagiarism, and referencing properly.
My brain is full.
It's a lot, but it's all essential stuff.
It is, and I think this document does a great job of breaking it all down.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up, there's one more thing I want to touch on.
Okay, what is it?
Reports.
Oh, yeah, reports. We talked about them briefly before.
Right, but they deserve a little more attention.
Okay, why is that?
Because they're so important, especially in fields that rely heavily on data and analysis.
Okay, so what makes reports different from essays?
Well, the document points out that reports are often more focused, more specific, more data-driven. They're about presenting those findings from research, experiments, or investigations.
Right, so it's like taking those research skills we've been talking about and applying them to a different kind of writing.
Exactly. And the document actually gives us some helpful guidelines for structuring different types of reports.
Like what kind?
Business reports, lab reports, field reports.
Oh, wow, a whole range.
And it even gives us some example topics, like comparing different plans for improving a sports center.
Oh, a good one.
Or analyzing data from a study on, like, male and female attitudes towards eating.
Interesting.
These examples really show how relevant these skills are in real-world situations.
So it's not just about academic writing, it's about preparing for those professional contexts where you have to communicate clearly and effectively.
Exactly.
All right, I think we've officially reached the end of our deep dive into this amazing document.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. We've explored so much, from decoding academic texts to writing those research-based essays and even tackling reports.
We've covered it all.
And I have to say, I'm feeling a lot more confident about navigating the world of academic writing now.
That's great to hear.
This document really has been like a treasure map, leading us to all these valuable insights and practical strategies.
It has. And remember, academic literacy is a journey, not a destination.
Right. It's about constantly learning and growing.
Exactly. So keep those minds curious, those critical thinking caps on, and never stop exploring the fascinating world of academic discourse.
Well said. It's been a pleasure diving deep with you all. And until next time, keep learning, keep writing, and keep those intellectual sparks flying.
See you next time.